And that's truly a schus that we had to keep learning. And Avada in Gan Eden, a Yid just keeps learning in Gan Eden. There's no Shaila and the Zikr part of the chevra as such. And the Eibush, the Half, and all of us should continue. The Vilna Gaon says, Al Pi Gematriyos, we won't get into now, but the Lashon Siyum, that those who come to share in the Siyum, it's Kilo, they've been there all along. So Michael and David have been smart enough, and Aryeh, to come at the end. They've saved themselves 3 years of traveling on a weekly basis, but they chapped the Rhine and came at the end. And the Goyen says, if you come for the Siyum, it's like you're there the whole time. So we salute you as well, and Ramakar Toiv. The Eibush the Halfin. I just learned this halacha shul today between Mincha and Ma'ariv, gave shir on halacha that a person's obligated when he has what to say. Hoido ala ovar, yes mevakesh ala osid. We thank the Rabbi for this schus to learn together, to be Messiah together. I'm in a Shamayim. We've learned Kiddushin for approximately 3 years. Punksha Kamada, my shvera's yard site. Actually, today was my wife's Zayda's yard site, and tonight is my wife's father's yard site. So it's mamish min hashamayim that it should come out like that, and to have a schus that the Rabbi has granted us to be able to come together and learn and be part of the Torah and have the Torah part of our lives. We're maided to Rabbi ala Ovar, but then we continuously have to be mavakesh ala osid. We ask the Rabbi to grant us health and long lives and productive lives, arichas yom v'sham with our families, that we should be able to do Ratzon Hashem and Avodas Hashem, and together we should continue to come with simcha, to simchas HaTorah, and on simchas and Be'ez Hashem. Together we should enjoy the great simcha, come from far away to the great simcha that one can't even imagine. The Bias Agel B'meher B'yameinu Amen. The Mishnah says, Kol Shasaka B'manoshim, one who deals with women. His business deals with women's issues. For instance, he's a peddler, and he peddles besamim, sweet spices or perfumes to women. So already we have a problem. Lo yisyachidim hanoshim. We have to be more machmer on him, and we can't allow him to be yachid, even when there would be a heter for some man. For this man, we can't be matter. V'lo yilmed adam is benoi umnes hanoshim. A father has to teach a son a trade. But if you have to choose a trade, don't choose a trade that the son will have to be along only with women. That his whole trade is based on selling to women. Because you're putting him in a place of nesoyim. And lechatchil. Now again, if there's no choice, somebody has to do it. But l'maisa, if you have a choice, that's not what you want to do because it puts him in nesoyim. Rameir Omer. L'oilam, taking this concept a step further. Rameir says, L'oilam yulmid adam is benoi umnes nikiya b'kal. If you have to teach your son a trade, it should be a clean, easy trade. No, but how are you going to make parnasa? Rameir continues, v'yispal and davin l'mi sha'oisher v'nechasim shaloi, to he who the riches and properties all belong to, which is the Rabbi Nishon. After all, let's get our true perspective. She'ein umnes she'ein banis ashirs. There is no trade in the world that there's not failures and successes. Everybody goes into this business. They hear this person's matzliach, they all run into that business. And lav dafka their matzliach. Go into another business where everybody has failed, and they make it big. What's the pshat? Every business has a niyas, and every business has a shiras. Why? Shaloya niyas mina umnis. The poverty didn't come from the trade you chose. V'loya shiras mina umnis, and the wealth didn't come from the trade you chose. Ela kol lefi schusay. Depends on your schusay. That's what it depends on. Kol lefi schusay, and the Rabbi Yishon has to grant people parnasa. And therefore, there's a shtadlus a person has to make. But the bottom line is, you need siyata d'shmaya. And we're zayich and chas v'sholom, sometimes not. But a person has to see where it comes from. And sometimes you think about it, and you taka see, in the same line of business, this guy made it, and this guy didn't make it. It doesn't make any sense. He just made it, and he made it. Why? Because he was granted that from Shemayim. Reb Shimon Elazar Omer. Reb Shimon takes it a step further. You want to see how bashert this is? This is Alman Shemayim. He says, did you ever see any animals, any wild animals or birds, sheishlam umnis, that they have some trade going on? Do you see the deer selling wares? Do you see birds buying and selling or being a doctor or an accountant? And yet the chayis and knife seem to have parnasa. Because what's parnasa? Being able to find something to eat and living. They live fine. So what's the pshat? Their whole creation was only to serve mankind. Animals were put into this world to serve mankind. Man is at the top of the heap. Everything was there. Adam Rishon was created last. There's something that the secular world is trying to be ma'arav us, to confuse us. Everything in the world was made to serve mankind. There's no such thing as we should lay down our life because there's a whale that's trapped out there. Or we should spend thousands of dollars to protect this chveis. We should give up our water resources because some bird there. Yes, Avada is Sar Balachayim, we paskins the Raisa, and Avada were Machshav the Bria, the Rabbi Shal made it. But let's get the proper perspective here. The whole Tachas Bria was to take care of us. V'harayim, Adam Marishan already brought a korban. So what was the Pshat brought a korban? Because the whole point of animals was to serve mankind. Whatever furthers mankind's purpose, that's there. Thus you will see in the Suda some meat that I will admit comes from a cow. And the reason for that is that cow was made to serve us. And that cow had the schus to be at a Suda's mitzvah. And don't feel guilty. Please, don't feel guilty. So he says like this. All these animals were made to serve me. Vani, and I was nevreisi l'shamash kaini to serve my master, which is the Rabbi Yishon. So let's take a look. These animals that are made to serve me, they have parnas without any problems. So ain't din shas parnas shalei b'tzar. So now I should have parnas without any problems. Why is it that mankind has issues? Ella, the answer is shahirati masai. I have not been a good person. I have done some bad things. This starts all the way back by Adam Marishan. Adam Marishan did chet. He was in Gan Eden. He had no issues. He had no parnasa issues. Everything was there for him. Where did he go wrong? He did the chet, thrown out of Gan Eden, and now, go ahead, and we've never recovered. It's gotten easier. Noach made it a little easier, invented the plow. There have been inventors ever since Noach that made it easier and easier and easier, although sometimes I wonder if some of the new inventions make it harder and harder, because when you're trying to have a little bit of menucha and all those new technology that's making it easier for you or buzzing in your ear, you wonder, is this making it easier or harder? But leaving that aside, lemaisa, it's still bezeh sapecha techalech. That's a chet. And more chet. When we had even less chet, when Mashal Dov and Shlomo Melech's time Beis Hamikdash, even we're at the top of the heap. Shlomo Melech's times, we're getting taxes from the entire world. Everybody was subservient to Shlomo Melech. We lived a good life. So chet takes us down. I did Ra Masa, I took away my own parnasa. That's what happened. But Be'ez Hashem, if we have schusim, Rabbi Shal gives b'shefa, and things are better. Abagurya ish tzadyin. Oimer mishum abagurya. Lo yilamin adam es benoi. Again, you have choices what to train your child, what trait to give him. Don't give him chamor, meaning to be a donkey driver. You can have a driver, somebody who drives. Rabbi David here is a full-service, luxury service, car service driver, somebody wants, door to door, right? But yet, if the service was driving a donkey, Abagurya says, that's not something I want my son doing. But Gamol, to drive a camel long distance. Kaidor, selling pots. Safon, a ship. Why? Raya, or a shepherd. V'chemvoni, or a storekeeper. Sha'umnason umnis listam. I discourage it because their umnis involves robbery.
Why does it say?
Now we're going to see in Rashi what the issues are. Rabbi Yehuda or Mishmai. Rabbi Yehuda said in his name. Rabbi Yehuda or Mishmai. Hachamarim, those who drive the donkeys, Reuben Rishon. Most of them are Rishon, and they're mostly wicked. What do? We're going to see that they rob people. They take people's property. The Hagamlanim, those who drive the camels, Ruben Ksheir, they're right kosher. Now what's the difference? The Gamel takes his camel long distances. The camel, Ben Hashemayim has those humps, stores up water, and can go long distances. So those camels go to places where the camels hang out. When you think camel, you think a desert. When you go to a desert, and you get through that desert, you understand there are a bunch of helps. Holchem Midbar is one of the ones, those who go bench. Those who go through the Midbar, they're going to be Ksheir, they're going to believe in Hashem. As we all know, there's no atheists in a foxhole. Foxholes were in World War I, they fought in foxholes. No atheists in a foxhole. In other words, everybody can say doesn't believe. And yet when the plane starts to shake, he's saying, Rabbi Shalom, save me. What happened to his atheism? In a foxhole is when you're in trouble, you call on God. So Lemaisa, the Gamel might have started off, who knows what, an atheist. Once he hit the Midbar, He's davening to Rabbi.
Also, I think maybe in the desert you don't. It's this. Nobody belongs to nobody.
Very good.
If it gets
So it's all
something,
hefker.
it's not
He can't be
regular.
legalistic. It's a very good shot.
Yeah.
Rashi's what I'm saying, but your shot's a good shot. Your shot's a good
Because
shot.
we have a fight with Roy Avram, Roy Elot.
That's right.
Because
That's
Roy
right.
Elot went to graze in other things.
But the midbar,
And
you're not
Moshe
going to
Rabbeinu took his thing, the flat Achar HaMidbar, to place where
Very good
it
shot.
not belong to nobody.
It's a very good
So
shot.
it's no problem about
Yeah.
Zayla.
It's a very good shot. So this way it's kosher. And that's a shot kosher. Because they only take kosher places. Hasafonim, those who go on the ship, they go really far distances. You're in the sea, that is truly frightening. Right? The Oivrei Yam. So they're Ruben Hasidim. They get to another madrega. They are truly Hasidim, meaning they're really cleaving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now here
I
goes.
really thought that was really funny. Always. I didn't know. Like the concept we have of sailors in our head.
Oh,
is not
yeah,
that.
that's good. Yeah,
I think
that
it's
is true.
hilarious.
We're not talking about
That is true. No, but that's a good point.
What's the difference between 2,000
No,
years ago and now?
that's
I
true.
wanna know.
That's true. But Lamaisi, you do see the story of Yaina. What happened when the storm came? They started believing. They started believing. Now they first tried the Avodah Zarah, didn't go, but then they believed and they said to Yaina, "Pray to God. We got to survive." So yes, those people in the sea understand. Now today they might phrase it differently. They might call it nature. They might call it the winds and the gods of winds. It's like the Avodah Zarah of old. But Lamaisa, they understand that they don't control the world. That for sure. There is no sailor who thinks he controls the world. Now here comes a very interesting part of the Mishnah. Toiv shebereifel again. Now about here we have David, who's a medical student, and he is l'chayra toiv shebereifel. But he's Baruch Hashem, he's going to Gan Eden after 120. And what's the pshat? Toiv shebereifel again. Now Rashi learns that he's not frightened. He eats healthy. He's not frightened of sickness because Lamaisa, he knows how to cure things. So Lamaisa, he has no Yiras Shamayim because he thinks he can take care of himself. Now Lamaisa today, I think the doctors have figured it out, that sickness comes upon Rahman al-Islam. Nobody can control these things. And even a doctor isn't that overconfident today. But they didn't have a lot of these things today then. Things that they had today, they thought they can cure. So he thought he can cure everything. Besides that, I would dare say that even the doctors don't eat that healthy today. So mainly again, he's not so confident.
So I actually looked this up.
Uh-huh.
There's a Gallup did a poll on the health. So I expected doctors to be healthy, and they are. To be
Really?
honest, they really.
Good.
And the general population is horrible with their health.
Mhm.
So to say that we're better than the general population is not saying much. So there were things that came up, like the big categories were like, do you exercise more than 3 times a day, and
3 times a week.
do you, 3 times a week, and do you and do you eat fruits and vegetables? And the last question was, were you healthy yesterday? Whatever that means. So in each of these categories, they're floating around like 50 to 60%. And by the general population, it was around either like 50 or 52, and by the doctors, it was 60.
Okay.
Like, that's not a huge increase. You're talking about 40% of doctors can't take care. All they're doing is studying health.
Very good.
So I thought it was it was
Okay.
remarkable. I looked that up.
Okay, good. That's a few Rashi. That's good. So there's no problem today.
Yeah.
There's many other pshat. The most famous pshat is the pshat that the doctor who's a Balgaiva makes mistakes. Meaning, he is so supremely confident that he doesn't consult with anybody else. This, unfortunately, is a problem today in the hospitals. And he thinks he's the man. If you want to get a second opinion, he's insulted. And he takes decisions upon himself, life and death decisions, that he has no business taking. He should be sharing it with a pool of doctors. And to think that he's in the place of God. Unfortunately, today we have a whole new understanding of Torah and Gehenna. Today, here in Los Angeles, and all over the world, but even here in Los Angeles, I know, certainly know about this. Doctors are pressuring people who they feel, this problem's only going to get worse with the president's help. When they feel that this person has basically outlived his usefulness, whether it's because of years or his status of health, they say, okay, make yourself comfortable. Get comfortable. Tell the family, get him comfortable. Now, get him comfortable is a euphemism for, we're doing nothing, let him go. We're not interested. Now, that's a terrible thing. And America perhaps was our last hope in that sense, because all the other countries have socialized medicine. You could be sure that the money means more than than investing what could be $100,000 in saving somebody. And this is terrible. Somebody here told me recently,
Actually, this has been changed. For example, I have files of doctors I can speak with.
Right.
The day they exchange information, for example, my doctor, my stomach doctor, for example, knows exactly what my head said. Because they interchanged information by computer.
because that's better.
They
That
read-
includes is better.
They read
Yes.
the
That's good.
All the
That Nakud is better.
has it.
And it's done very, very much so, very much so.
That's good. No, that's good. But people should not be pressured by doctors. Doctors have secular values, most of them. Obviously, David will not. But there are many doctors, not most, the vast majority have secular values. Life means something different to them than it does to us. And we may not listen to them. And they do understand when you tell them you're going to speak to your clergyman, that they respect that. And they have to respect that, and they do, basic, by and large. But they pressure, and one has to know. Lav Dafka. Lav Dafka. We had this week, Nebuch last week was a Levaya of a very fine woman here in the side of town. She was lifter, quite young, in her 60s. She was very sick. And the doctor went into her, Mrs. Biederman, and the doctor went into her and asked her, what does she want them to do? And she said, that's not my decision. That decision was made long ago. If that decision was made by the Torah, speak to the rabbis. It's not my decision. Now that is an answer. That's a very special answer of a Torah-dika person. Again, the Torah, you'll be surprised to see the range of different things that there are in different situations, what there are. Chas v'shalom pulling the plug, but there are times where one does pull back. Again, it's complicated, it's not for now. And there are things, and I'm sure Doug will study these issues when the time comes, but obviously you should only be Mechaya people. But that's the type Shabbat from that. That's the most Pashut Pshat type Shabbat. The type Shabbat from that.
I just say that the Brisker Rav said what you said, but you compare it to a Rav. He says, and I wouldn't say these words, but the Rav gets a question like a chicken. And the chicken's not such a
Life
crazy life and death situation. It's not as important of an issue as a word, but yet the Rav will ponder over it, even consult and ask. So he says what you're saying in terms of that. Can I say the cutest one that I thought?
In Europe, that wasn't so. The chicken meant whether somebody could eat or not.
No, it was right.
Yeah.
I understand. The cutest thing I thought was that when you try to change these things around. So with Tov Shebarofim, if you take Tov, so it's 17. So it's saying a doctor of 17 goes to Gehenna. 17 of what? So 17 of the 18. So which one's he throwing out? He's throwing out Refuah. He's throwing out that Hashem is right for Cholim.
Very good.
So I thought that was I thought that was remarkable. And then I wouldn't either say this either, but Rabbi Akiva Eger, he changes it around and he says that this isn't talking about a doctor, but it's talking about someone who acts like a doctor. So what in what way? Not saying he pretends to heal people. Saying a doctor has to take on a certain type of personality that what he's about to do is going to make you wince. He's going to cause you pain, either with medication, either with a surgery. But he's not supposed to react, so he has to have a midah of a certain harshness. Something that, obviously the doctor's supposed to be sensitive, but this is a type of midah that he has to have. He's to be able to withhold what you're almost sometimes screaming at.
Correct.
And if somebody takes that midah on, that's not a doctor, so that person's going to get him.
Yes.
I thought
There's a variation of that even, that if a doctor sometimes is too nice, he says Rachmanis, he says the guy needs an operation, he says, and he has Rachmanis, he says I'm not going to operate. And the person Nebuch gets very sick because of that. So Taif, Shabrayim, is too nice, that's also Lagana. So doctors got to know to take the right road. V'kosher shabatabachin, the kosher among the butchers, which was really sheikhtim in those days, shutfei shalom alek. He's a partner to a malek. And the pshat is like this, because he's so used to pashup pshat. Well, Rashi learns it's because you got to be worried on treifus. Is their whole parnosis depends on treif. If it's treif, they lost a lot of money. So Lamaisa, they might be cheating on the treifa, and that's why he's a shutf shalom alek, that he's Michael treifus to people. But the pashup pshat is that somebody who is a sheikhim and sees that blood and the gushing of blood loses his little fine sense of rachman. There is even though it's necessary, but there still is a sense of achzorius when you shecht an animal. And therefore, again, even though it's mutter, but you lose that fine self of compassion, that empathy. And that's why, if you're not careful, you can become not a molek, but shutva shalom. You can get close to that molek. What's a molek? A molek is the ultimate cruelty. You can lose that sense of rachmim. You can lose that krechts. If you hear a krechts, it's this happened. If you get cold to that, then you become a shutva shalom.
What are they going to do with Moyalim? With the Moyal?
What's that? The moil. Yeah.
What are they going to do with the Moyal?
Well, the moil's not, because the moil, it's just a little bit, that's a real ticket. Here it's a loss of life, the moil for care. Mechayim, it just takes a little bit of blood. That there's no Indian of Misa that makes the person's rachman go away. Well, Meister of Yonis and Eibeshitz has a very nice pshat here. So if anybody's in the sheikhet field, you can feel better. And he says, if you're a kosher shabbatabachin, If you want to be a kosher butcher, so what's the problem? What's Rashi's issue here? Rashi's issue is you got treifus, and you have really a lot of nisyonis because your business can go down the drain. Remember, in the little derfluch they shechted one cow, and if that cow was treif, he went bust. So Rabbi Yonah says, you want to be a good tabach, do what we do today. Get yourself a partner in business who's a good. Get a maleki to be your partner. So when the treifus come, he's going to take the treifus, and the kosher ones you'll take. Then you won't have any issues. You won't have any nisyonis. That's what he means, Shoshama, and that's what we do today. All the Jewish butcher stores today, all the Jewish big places today, meat stores, they are shutfim goyim. When they get a treifus, they don't lose money. They just don't make as much money, but they send it to the goyim, so they don't have these nisyonis of yesteryear. They must do Rabbi Yonah and Aibshitz Eitzah. This Eitzah.
Why is Daka Amalek? Why can't these be just done like they're not doing Akum?
So in the Pashat Pshat, it's Amalek because that's the bloodthirstiness.
Amalek is known to be bloodthirsty?
Yes, Amalek is cruelty. Yeah, that's the Pshat. Amalek is bloodthirsty.
Okay.
So I think the same thing, even if you can learn Rabbi Yonah and Aibshitz, who would you expect? By us, Shechita is a fine thing. So a chashuv yid has to be a talmid chacham, must be a shayach. By them, to be a butcher, there's no halachas involved, so it's sort of a grubba thing. So there, it's like we'll call it Amaleki. It's sort of a rough house goy who's doing it, and a cruel goy, a rough house goy, we'll coin Amaleki. That's the stomach of pshat for your so we use the term Amalek rather than just stomach goy.
So their trait, like...
Oh yeah, Amalek's trait is definitely cruelty. That you see in the Torah. Yeah, no shiloh. That you see in Avzarius. They attacked the Yidden and they zerred their Mila, they attacked them in Yisa ways. That's for sure. The end of the Mishnah, that's right, Kol Nachshol Machrecha, that's where you learn from. Rab Neroi says, Maniach ani kol umne shabaylam, ve'in melamed is b'ni ala Torah. I'm going to leave all trades, forsake all trades, and I'm going to teach my son Torah. Why? Shalom oichel mischara b'aylam hazeh, v'akeren kayemus oilam haba. The person eats his reward in this world, and the principle is still there in the next world. But sharklum is edikain. Other trades are not like that. Shalom b'ladei chayil dei zikra, a person gets sicker, old age, surmer, suffers, they can't go to work. Harei meis barav, he can't go to work, he has no money, he can never die from starvation. I will Torah edikain. Meshamrot and korah, the schus HaTorah will guard somebody when he's young. The noisnele achrus with tikva gives him hope at the end of his life. Biziknusay when he's older. Narusay ma'omer when he's young, what does it say? V'kayve Hashem yachlif v'kayach. Biziknusay when he's older ma'omer. Oy jinub meseva v'cheinim b'Avram Avinu v'Avram Zaken Hashem berach Avram V'Koil. So even Avram had a great zikna, and what's the significance? Because Matzinu Shas Avram Avinu is called Torah Kula. That's because Chus Torah that Avram had. Avram learned the Torah. Actually, he didn't know, even though it was before Man Torah. Shenemer Eikav Shesham Avram B'Kaili V'Yishmer Shmartim Tzayz V'Koyz V'Sayos. Rashi.
So why don't we see this all the time?
We're going to see. I'm going to answer that trial. It's a good question. Kol Shasaka V'Manoshim Shaletz Nosin Nasi Noshim Shvichas Lo L'Sachan Noshim Afilim Harbe Noshim. Even if he has several women at once, he shouldn't be alone with them. Now, that's mutter. If he shall leave by gospel, because his lave he's too hamish with them. They'll defend him. Vila Shachrina, another man made Shtei Noshim Tanan, only with two women. Now, Shol Sha'arba Shaperdomi, 3 or 4 wouldn't be a problem. That is a Shaila Halacha. Taisis argues at Rashi, and he learns it means that Fila Ishta Imai, even if the man's wife is with him. L'alacha l'maisa, there are some chumras here. I'm not like to place exactly what. We'll leave that aside. Nikiya v'kalu farshig mar shaper val yarim beliba umazu enim asher zavakish rachim. Dikers, whenever trade you have, ask rachim l'misha oish shalei to Rabbi. Chamor gamol safim kedar bal kronis kol elu umnis listis. There's robbery involved. Why? Shalonim midrachim. These are people who are going around. They're people who are not at home, so they're on the road. These are 4 types of trades that they're on the road. If they're on the road, they need a fire, they take people's wood from the carrot, or pear from the vineyard, and then they take fruit. They just take, because they're on the road, and the shaynas are too great, so they're sick. He eats a lot because he eats at every place he goes. He eats good food, clean bread, a bunch of shumin fat, meat, shemaik, doesn't have to go to the bathroom over much. Because only eats healthy food. He's out with women. You can't trust him. Women give their husband. Well, he's not robbing. He'll ruin his reputation. But women take money from their husbands that they shouldn't have and give him a nice little he takes too much blood, and the man has less blood than Revius, so he is like a shevra. Not that he's killing anybody. He wouldn't have a reputation. Machta de Tomisa, Macha Tamiyas Bush de Balash, and Tfirs Asui Slam Tlaim, Shur Shur Tlam Shulchis. Now this is not, it doesn't mean in the field itself, it means he does stitching. He does clean stitching. And that's this Umnus Nikiya Bakala. Fine. As opposed to the Gardi. It's like this is like somebody, a Reikim, it's like somebody who knits or weaves, which is a specialty. As opposed to the Gardi, who has to go to the homes and fix the clothing, that's already not as chashuv as this. Okay, now we're going to finish. Yeah, you want to call it sweet? So we're going to finish soon. Tanya Rabbi no umnis is going to leave this world. In other words, we're always going to need all kinds of trades. Lucky is privileged is the man who sees his family has a good trade. Never for the person that the family trade is a defective. You can't live without some perfumes, or without a tanner. The privilege is the person that works in a store that smells good. Woe to the person that works in a leather tanning place smells terrible. Mr. Marx was like Gezund. He had a tzad to come. He worked with skins and this and leather, and he used to tell us about how it smells. There has to be males and females. A man wants males. Only has females. As we said, teach your son a clean, easy trade. You're not poor from the trade, and you're not rich from the trade. It's all the Rabbi Shalom Shenemer, Liya Kesev Liya Zah. The Rabbi Shalom is the boss of all the Gashmis. Numa Hashem Tzvahs. Rashi, Iveris min Ha'el, Mishabetel min Ha'el, Beishin Nikiv, Beishin Musa, Yeshin Tzar, Leil, Denazel, Nel Acher, Rashi Misha Reis, Hayr, Yelub, Zilab, Mizakiya, Beisim, Markim Fine. That's what Rav Shimon Lazar. Risi Mechel, Time Rav Shimon Lazar. Miyamai, never, like Risi Tzvi Kayetz. They never saw a deer that dries out figs. Because they used to take the figs, and they have them dry out, and they'd be ready for the summer. Vari Sabel, I never saw a lion as a porter. Now they picked the lion as a porter because he's strong. And the tzvi, because he can jump around. The shul chemini, or the fox, that's a storekeeper, because he's smart, so he can be a storekeeper. And yet, hey, mispartis or shlei bitzar, they're not any problems. And they're only created to serve me. But I was created to serve my creator. They were created to serve me. Certainly I should have parnas without any problems. I was not so good. I did bad things. I lost my parnasa. The end of the Gemara, I'll leave all umnus aside. I'm only going to teach my son Torah. Now, there's a couple of problems here. First of all, Shmuel is asking, you got to teach him a trade. So, very nice to teach him Torah. Where's the trade? Secondly, the famous kasha, Reb Neroi in Erevin is called Remeir. The Gemara says he's Reb Neroi, and he's also, they called him Remeir, because he was Meir Sa'il. Meir in Chachamim. So what's the pshat? Then he says to himself, Remeir was the one who said earlier about Umnis. And here Reb Neroi saying, no, forget Umnis, Torah. So there's many who say this pshat, Brisker up, but they're before him as well, that we find the famous Gemara Brachas that Rabbi Shmuel says, Hanig ben minad derchatz. Everybody should go to work, and they'll have time to be kavitim with Torah, because if not, you can't have a kiyum. Because what's going to happen? You have to be zarei, you have to be chayrish, you have to be kaitzer. Reb Shimon ben Yochai says, you're going to do that. There's going to be no learning. There's going to be no learning. So the Gemara concludes and says, Harbe Oscar Rabbi Shmuel. Many tried Rabbi Shmuel, and V'olsabiyah. Many tried Rabbi Shmuel to work and learn, and it worked. Harbe Oscar Rabbi Shimon, V'loi Osabiyah. Many tried Rabbi Shimon's way and did not work. Just to learn. Many conclude, Rabbi Chaim the Dika Ram, which we don't have time for, that the Lashon Gemara is many tried like Rabbi Shimon and it didn't go. It sounds like if some would, it would go. It's just not for the many. The pshat is, there's a rule for the oilam, and then there's yechidim. For the oilam has to have an umnis, and go to work, and be kaveitim l'Torah. But then there are yechidim, who can transcend the norm, and can give up a lot, and can embrace Torah. And the Torah will be a bracha for them, and they'll find somehow parnasa through Torah. But they have to give up. They're the Yechidim. If the Rabbim do it, it won't work. Only the Yechidim who are truly holding by it, they can go ahead and live that life of Torah. Now that's the answer here. Reb Noiroi was his private name. Reb Meir was his public name. So Reb Meir, as a public personality, says to everybody, go get a tray. Reb Noiroi, as a private person, he is certainly that Yochid who can handle it. He says, for me personally, I took my son and I said to my son, you go learn Torah. Because that's what I'm at, my person. For the Velt's got to do what the Velt can do. But if you have Yechidim that can handle it, you have a son, Baruch Hashem, that can handle it, so that you can tell them, go ahead and learn Torah. Go learn Torah. That's the Indian of Torah. And he goes on and says, Torah kol Shabbat and Mesla Meyol Dusay Mesik Nasser and Mutal Barav. Torah ain't a king. You have Torah and Mesla and Mesik Dusay. It says like Rabbi Tikva Basic Musay. You have when you're young. You have when you're old. Basic Dusay. Ma'am Kovesh and Koyach Yalav Kanshar. Just want to mention my shver Tzchayin Lavracha David Ben Chaim Yitzchak was nifter at a young age, so to speak. He was 59, I believe. He was a yeshiva boy. He left home at 10 years old. Left Portland, Maine, to make the trek to New York to learn Torah Das, Rabbi Rosler's time. He would have been today, just to figure if you cross paths, he would have been today 68, 73. He would have been about 73. So a little younger than yourself. So Lemaisa, he went at 10 years old, his brother was 9, they went all the way to Torah Das to New York, and sat and learned. And then eventually got married, he needed a parnasa, went to Harvard, became a lawyer, and lived in Boston many years. And he said over and over, will come the time he doesn't need this. He's making parnasa for his family, support his children, he should go to yeshivas, but come a time he's ready to leave. This is not his career. This is his life for parnasa. When comes a time. At a certain point, he did exactly that. And he retired, his kids were older, moved back to New York, found an apartment as close to the yeshiva as possible, to Torah Das, went back in, went to the Mashgiach, the Menal there of Segula, told Rebbe, I'm coming to yeshiva. So he left. I need chavrusas. So he left him. Said, what are you doing here? He left him. The next day he brought my brother-in-law, and he went back to him, and he said, no, I'm serious. And he got him chavrusas. And he went there and learned their storm the whole day, learned their Beinas door, went to Shir, took Pechinas, and Mamish was mechazik other Bachrim, and to learn, and to be kaveit, and to be serious about their learning, to know what the world is all about, and how to manage and navigate the world. And he was nifter as a Talmud in the yeshiva, and his Levi was in the yeshiva in Torah Das. And he was nifter like not many people can. He was nifter living out his fantasy. That he went back in Torah. He started off in Torah, and he went back in Torah. And he was nifter with a murder simcha. Yes, he was nifter young, but a few people live out their fantasy. He lived out his fantasy was not to leave life as the most successful lawyer in Boston, which maybe he could have if he would have stayed, but his fantasy was to leave this world back where he started, just a yeshiva bacher, a yeshiva man. He was married to Hashem and Torah Das. That's exactly what he did. And Ashrei Loi, and it's truly an inspiration what he did. And the Eibush Halfen, he should rule Yitzchak and Gan Eden and have his Ilu Neshama, which the Siyum should be Ilu Neshmasai, will be Messiah the Gemara, Bezeknusay, Ma'oimer, Oiji Nuvim Beseva, the Shem Ranan you, Zokrashi, Baisim, Zvikai, Miam Sis, Besoda, Sabon Baisim Asaz, Kol Nias Elam, Matan Skar Lachas Mano, Schar, Motzil, Beshai, Ter, Matzvar, Bamael, Loch Yamim, Afluchel, Zog, Shen Yochel Asba, Afshwa, Evman Akoidish, Nemar, Beseva, Yitzmach Tzemach, Yitzmach Tzemach, maybe Rashi's being Meramis to Mashiach. Mashiach is called Tzemach. V'yisyachet Schor Leisei Vos L'Shem Raniyu V'Goymer Hamir Allah Asar Yuks S'licha L'Masas Kedushin Halach Asar Yosef L'Masas Kedushin Halach Asar Yosef L'Masas Kedushin Hamir L'Masas Kedushin Hamir L'Chadayt L'Masas Kedushin Dayt Alon Nor Fish Masech should say along with you L'Izashim L'Masas Kedushin L'Izashim Yino L'Mamadei L'Mamadei Osi Hamir L'Masas Kedushin Hamir Allah Dayt L'Masas Kedushin Dayt Alon L'Izashim L'Masas Kedushin L'Izashim Yino L'Mamadei L'Mamadei Osi Hamir L'Masas Kedushin Hamir Alon Daino was as dush daino lo les ashmi no mesaf dush les ashmi no le aldem le dos yiratzim v'nachad no leim levi sein shnei terosum lesem le mazet un sein mono le abo chanina va papa rai va papa nam va papa choy va papa mor va papa ram va papa roch va papa shul va papa ador va papa dor va papa harev no adino yaleheinu divei serosum befinu lefius amcha beisis ro v'nia kulonu anachnu tzatzoeinu v'tzatzoi amcha beisis ro kulonu yoydei shemech lem tzesechem ay oy vaytzem akmeim tzesech lem hili Yilibi some chukechem al yebush. Loyim layashu b'kedech yivav yisoni baruch ato adinoi lamadei chukecha omen 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 selave. Moigim anachnu levanecha adinoi aleinu v'lev v'sein. Shesamtach lakeinu miyoshev v'semedesh v'samtach lakeinu v'she kronis. Shonu mashkim v'hei mashkim. Onu mashkim l'divrei soirim. V'hei mashkim l'dvar b'teilim. Onu ameil v'hei ameil. Ono meil mekabel schar, beheme meilen ve'ena mekabel schar. Ono rotze ve'em rotze, ono rotze chalo, ono rotze ve'sham, shenemar atel lehem, teridel ve'shachas, ad shedom mirmo le'yachzu yimem v'niyachtu. Yirotze v'levonecho adino yelehai. Shem shezatal l'sayim v'sachskush. Kein taz regel haskel v'sachtes rom achir l'sayim v'lumay lam v'luch v'lasik kaim kol v'sam v'dezach b'yavam. Uschuz kol atenom amirom v'sam v'chachom lila zar shloitom v'shatermi pipi zar 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 yadoyim. V'seskai pipi zar lecha tancho isa v'shav v'dishma lecha v'tzaysi tzisichecha. Ki vi hier b'yavav v'sim l'chosh l'schayim oirech yom b'minus v'lash v'chaved adino oiz l'meitain adino yivor v'sam v'shav. Berazer, can you say Kaddish for us? Because of this, I think I'm understand. Be'olme, du hast We're learning Be'er, is that true? Be'er should only be yontiv. Shamay Amrim. Yochel, Beisilum Relayah, it's one of the Chumas of Beisham, the Chumas of Beisilum and Kuls of Beishamai. Be'er Hashem, next Tuesday night, a week from tomorrow, we'll begin. Now let's enjoy the soup. Be'er, yeah. Ask again. Good.
Not yet. Will you let me know though? Oh, I appreciate it.
Many years ago, one of the sermons, about 40, 50 years ago, 40 or 50 years ago, that I was the Rabbonis. Rabbonis or Rabbonis. I was saying that the Pashta, they have in Israel. And the question arose, what power does one person, one Yuchid, what power does a Yuchid have if he can transform the world? At that time, in NYU, there was a philosopher, Sidney Hook, the philosopher Sidney Hook, a very famous philosopher. And he had a time, then he had a time of some of the other philosophers. What influence does a person have over the world? What can one accomplish in this world? What influence does he have? So he was arguing with somebody, he says, is it the society that makes the person, or the person makes society? He had a kind that he said that society makes a person. And then someone said, no, the person makes society. And he said that Rabbi Langer made society. Rabbi Langer, the Hashem, in Siyum, he started many years ago, Rabbi Langer here, and they started the Daf Yomi. Yes. How many years ago was that? 25 years ago?
25 years ago.
25, 30 years ago. Baruch Hashem, he made an impression. He had many Talmidim, and today they're out in the world, and they still learn. They learn, and that made an impression. And it should be Zoycha to have many Talmidim, and to be make an impression that Yiddishkeit soll wachsen.
Thank you so much. Very touching.
Got it.
Thanks, Israel. There's scotch there. Schlitman's here. He wants some time.
Red, I'll take one.
Me?
Did you take one?
Yeah, I'll take whatever my.
Maybe a scotch.
Chaim. A big part of this, I'm just so touched. You came all the way from.
I'm driving tomorrow. What are you drinking, Les? Bobby, what are you doing? He's not driving, is he?
Eating seltzer.
Good, but
There's no.
you want a drink?
Anybody else? L'chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim, Chaim, wir sind gesund und stark. We worked together for many years. Chaim, Chaim, Chaim. Simen Taibu, Mazel Taibu, Mazel Taibu, Simen Taibu, Kol Yisrael. Simen Taibu, Mazel Taibu, Mazel Taibu, Simen Taibu, Kol Yisrael. Ay Simen Taibu, Mazel Taibu, Mazel Taibu, Simen Taibu, Kol Yisrael. Simen Taibu, Mazel Taibu, Mazel Taibu, Simen Taibu, Kol Yisrael.
The question is, I want to bring out this way, this way. Who made this side? This made the side, this way. This came with Magai himself. So the society, because in the realm of Moshe Rabbeinu and so on, so the society made a heaven. On the other hand, he went home and he was Magai the people there, so he had a chaylik and actually
Very good.
he was Magai the people there.
Very good. Very good.
Very strong message. Change our surroundings.
Rabbi, can I ask you just curious?
Sure.
Are you like a shtickle Hasidic? Do you follow Nusach? There's a reason why I'm asking.
Nusach Svar, regular
Nusach
Nusach
Svar?
Svar.
I've been very
Not
curious.
necessarily.
There were two places within the entire Siddur that the Zohar is brought. The Zohar is actually like made mention of.
Rich man.
Rich man Chagam.
Yeah.
So from what I understand, it's brought down in the Zohar that that one should say Rich man, but I don't understand what the reason behind Kigavna. Why that particular passage as opposed to anything else.
I don't think Rich May is because the Oren opens up, and it says Man Tefillah, and that's the goddess of Rich May. You can ask whatever you want. Tefillahs can go up with Shemayim. Kigamra just talks about Shabbos. It's a memra about Shabbos. So because you're greeting Shabbos, you want something to talk about Shabbos. So Zalpi, I don't know if it was Zalpi Ari or just the Chassidim themselves chose, the original Chassidim chose Kigamra. I don't think it's Zalpi Ari. I think the original Chassidim, whether it was about Shem or the Magid, chose to say something about Shabbos, from the Zohar, about the inner quality of Shabbos, which is what Kigamra is.
So if the Ashkenazim they do the Chadogi and they do so it would seem if anything the Arizal was going to introduce about Shabbos. So if originally it had Kigavna, then the Ashkenazim would have had to switch it to the Mendig.
It wasn't Mamish Dari because the Chadogi was made by Rosh Shlomo Al-Kabitz. He was a contemporary of the Ari, but he wasn't the Ari. Yeah, but he's the one who made the Piyut the Chadogi. So it wasn't just the Arizal. It wasn't so. Everybody embraced Kabbalah Shabbos because the idea of Kabbalah Shabbos starts from a Gemara. The Gemara in Shabbos itself says some of those things that they went out and were Makabel Shabbos. So it's just the nusach exactly. Go down there.
But it's almost like you have the authentic version, and the Ashkenazim they want to put the Mendig in there to kind of like
the Mendig is because it has parts of it that says you're supposed to speak out when Shabbos comes. It says, but you're supposed to tell them, Esartem, Eravtem, Adlikus and Er. So there's things that should be said. So they incorporate it into davening to say it, to get it said.
But they removed Kigavna, they put that in its place.
No, Kigavna never was there. Kigavna comes later. Kigavna is not mentioned in the earlier Svarim as something to say.
I think Shabbos is the center, like the word Shmot. Shabbos, Miller, and the Philip. They have hot. And the Gemara said also Hillel and Shammai, they eat all the week for Shabbos. What the Shabbos, even the Leviim, Yom Yom Rishon b'Shabbos, Yom Yom Sheni b'Shabbos. So Shabbos is a self-important in the Jewish tradition.
It's the Tachlis.
Yeah. So why didn't they have Kabbalah Shabbat until...
They didn't have a formal thing. Just like they had before chakras.
Yeah, I know.
They had davening, they didn't have a formal chakras. But here too. They had a couple going out to be Makabel Shabbos. Some hold to mitzvah deraisa, a Gemara Rosh Hashanah. Mitzvah Derais, we might smechol al kodesh. You have to do it a kabbalah. But the formal nusach that came later. Well, that's a separate thing. Till today, Ashkenaz holds that a Kabbalah Shabbos on a real davening. It's just a nusach to say for Kabbalah Shabbos. If you go to an Ashkenaz shul, he doesn't stand at the Omer in the front, he stands at the Bima in the middle. Because it's not a real tefillah. Whereas in Nusach Svart, who Kabbalah Shabbos is really a big thing, he stands in the front. The talent's over his head, and it's a much bigger thing in that sense. But the idea of Kabbalah Shabbos is already seen in the
Why some people say I got you.
Right, go ahead. Well, if you're not even...
It's also concentration. It's error.
So what is the answer the practice that Paul was saying that you can guarantee now I take guns at but unfortunately we do see so
Look at Kapakti's mindset. Who can say today that they're living that level of
but we say the law is tzaddik nezah.
yeah.
So why are we calling him a tzaddik?
Because he's not nezah. No, if he's a tzaddik, he doesn't feel forsaken. He might have a tough time, but one, he doesn't feel forsaken. Kam ki elach begates al-mavis la-yirah ki ato imodi. So when the Melech went and gates al-mavis and didn't feel forsaken.
There's a home bakesh la'achrim, but sometimes we do see there's a home.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know if it means in that sense, to the literal sense as Arba'at Shlochem, or it means in a metaphorical sense, that he needs lechem, he's looking for his tachlis. If the tzaddik is zoichev and his children go in that way, they're not Rabbi Shlochem. Lechem seems to be a metaphor for a tachlis of lechem.
It's very good.
Denmark told me that you must visit him.
Yeah, did you see him? Oh, really? I was hoping he was going to come still. She told me if Sam can take him, maybe he'll come.
This week he came with us.
Oh, really?
Somebody
So Rabbi, you've been having this year for 25 years?
This variations of it. I started with Jacob 25 years ago.
Was there a particular impetus? Did somebody request it, or did you?
They had it before me. I just took over the spot that was vacant. I came to LA then. And I came to the Kyle, and the point of me coming was to give shul. So there was a vacancy. Before I came, they had a vacancy, and they made up that I should do that shir. I think again, the whole shir, Baroshim Taka are the elders of the shir, Rabbi Rosler, Al-Yichus Muflig, and Rav himself in America, Duluth, Minnesota, Talmud Muvik Ketardas, the Rav of Minnesota. What an honor it is that a Rav should come to our shir. It's not going to have a shaykhs or Rabbi Rosler for a quarter century, which I truly treasure. Rabbi Gur, Baruch Hashem, the Yichus of Rabbi Gur, as everybody knows, and if you don't, you should. Rabbi Gur's father was the Miyasid of Bnei Brak. The Yon's Bnei Brak is because of Rabbi Gur's father. There's no Guzma here. The Chazaynish Schus and Panovich Rav was a big chalik, but the one who was Miyasid, Bnei Brak, was Rabbi Gur's father. Rabbi Gur grew up in the shadow of the Chazaynish and the Panovich Rav, the chevra in Yeshiva, and there's a Talmud Chacham Muflig Ba'atzmai, that's still Mitzvah Shvachah. The fact that he comes, and both Rabbi Raz and Rabbi Gur come to Serious Nefesh, and Bemis, everybody does. There are weeks that it's hard for them to come, and I know there's weeks it's hard for Dick to come, and everybody, and Fred and Shmuel, and look at David, it's certainly hard for him to come, and the Ilm comes. Again, it's a tremendous Akaras HaToiv that you come, and you even wait when the Reb Magid Shir comes late, which is probably most weeks, and we truly appreciate the Eibusha again, the Telfin, that everybody should be gesund and stark. We shall learn and be zeicha to the Biyas HaGoel Meher B'Yameinu Amen.
Amen.
There's a minig vosik that when one learns a Messechta, you're Messiahing the Messechta, you should makasher the end to the beginning. The end of the Messechta is all about learning Torah and how beautiful and umnus it is, and it'll last you your whole life. The beginning of the Masechta then starts back to the beginning. Hadron Olach Meseches Kiddushin Ha'isha Niknes B'Shalosh Drachim. Kaz v'shtar Rabbi. A Shaila in Drush. We know a famous Gemara in Brachas that the Gemara says b'Marov in Eretz Yisrael Karavanosav Inish Itza. When a person got married, they used to ask him matzah. What kind of wife did you get? A matzah or a maitzi? Beis Hashem, we wish our bachrim are going to get a matzah. Beis Hashem, Kiroi lehem matzah isha matzah taif, or maitzi ni marmi mavis as a isha. Find marmi mavis isha. Shrekliche words. So that's what they asked. Eretz Yisrael can do that. They have the ability to ask those kind of questions. Yeah, what? They get to the point. So the Welt asks a child, where do you see the chiluk? Matzah isha, matzah taif, matzah mar isha. The Welt says averta. Matzah isha. And this, of course, has nothing to do with our present-day women that are here in the room. Matzah isha, matzah taif. You find the isha. Matzah. Matzah mar es ha isha. A woman who thinks she is the isha. Then you're in trouble. Matzah isha, matzah taif. Matzah mar. Es ha-isha. Again, present company excluded. Rabbi Gur found his isha. Then Baruch Hashem, Mr. Einhorn has his isha. His daughter represents that. Of course, my wife, Baruch Hashem. But that's what the Welt says. Ha-isha, the woman. Okay, that's already trouble. Matzah mar. Hey, bazai, dafen fragen in Teres Drush. So you'll start off the Masechta Ha-isha Niknas. You start Masechta Kiddushin right away. It's Ha-isha Niknas. What's going on over here? This is the Masechta. We're going to be 82 blot with this Ha-isha Niknas. And what Maitzing and Marav is as a isha. What's the pshat? Tosfos asks a kasha stam in Yonei HaLoshen, taking Loshen Kodesh. Why does it Bechlal say Ha-isha? It should stam in Hilchos HaLoshen. In the normal way the Loshen Kodesh is used in Mishnaic terms, it should Bechlal say Isha Niknas. Why does it say Ha-isha? The woman is acquired. It's not the woman, it's a woman is acquired, not the woman. And Tosfos is a long Tosfos, the first Tosfos in Kiddushin. And Tosfos says Ha-isha because it's going on a Isha Hamvureres Bakra. It's going on a pasuk that's delineated in the Torah Kedosha. That's the Isha. We're not talking about Stama Isha. The Isha that says Ki Yikach Ish Isha. The Isha that the Torah mentions in the Torah, that's the Isha we're talking about here. Now we can understand. When Bishla Stam, a person marries a woman, and that woman is a Isha Matzisha Matzatay. She thinks she's the woman, you got trouble. Maitzi Nimar Mab says a Isha. But this Isha Niknas that we start the Masechta, go all the way back, go one block beforehand. Go back to the end of the Masechta. When is it good for a person? When does he have the best of the world, both this world and the next? If you live in the Torah world. If you're part of Torah. If your life is a Torah life. If what you do is Al-Pi Torah. If you do Al-Pi Torah, you live your family Al-Pi Torah. So that's Oidyunum B'Seiv, Oibazoi. Ha-Isha Niknas. Which woman? The woman that's Muvureres Bekra. The woman that's in the Torah, meaning she lives with the Torah. Taisas Muvureres Bekra will take it to the nth degree. I mean, a woman Al-Pi Torah, she's Taka Ha-Isha. Women who live Al-Pi Torah, that is Taka Ha-Isha. That's not the Kadnosiv Inish Itza. They asked Mamarav. That you don't need there to stroll to ask anymore. That's Pashat, that's Ha-Isha. If Muvareres Bekra, you're living Torah-dik, and the woman is a Karasabai, sets up a house Torah-dik, that's for sure Ha-Isha Niknas, it's not a Shaila. It's only Stamazoi, it's not Torah-based, then you have a Shaila, it's a Isha, Ha-Isha, Matzish Matzayf or not. But the Ha-Isha, the one that the Taisa says, Pshat in the Mishnah, Muvareres Bekra, going back to the end of the Masechta, do you live Torah-dik? No, there's nothing to talk about. That's the best thing you can have in life. You have both Olam Hazar and Haba. The Eibus are helpful. We should be able to live Torah-dik. Families, Be'ez Hashem, from Torah-dik away, together. Baruch Hashem, Klal Yisrael is a family. Kol Yisrael, Arev Zel Azeh. And that family of Torah, this Moeredik Yidua, when they imprisoned the last famous blood libel in Russia, they imprisoned the Jew, and the lawyer had a shaykhis to the Chortka Rebbe. The Chortka Rebbe let out the word that everybody should write a pshat, because the prosecutor had found, it says in the Gemara, that Atem Kruyim Adam v'lehem Kruyim Adam. Jews are referred to as Adam, and Goyim are not referred to as Adam. So he says that's the proof that they killed a Goyish kid, because he's not an Adam. If he's not a mensch, so they can kill him. It's meaningless. That's the proof. He brought his proof from the Talmud. And that was one of the prosecution's main pieces of evidence. Rameir Shapiro was a Chodke V'Chassid, wrote back a pshat. They use this in the defense of Bayless in the trial. And he wrote, that's not what the Gemara is saying, that a person's a Jew is a human being and a Goy Chas v'Shalom not a human being. You would think so. Atam Kriyim Adam. There are many ways of coining the phrase person. There's Adam, there's Ish, there's Gever. There's many different ways. Ish, in plural, is Anoshim. Gever is Gevarim. Adam, what's the plural of Adam? There is none. There is none. Adam signifies where there's no plurality. Everybody is just one. How can that be? When two Yidden meet, you look around the table. Rabbi Gur represents the finest of Eretz Yisrael and his rebels. Rabbi Rosler is from Europe, Eastern Europe, Baruch Hashem brings the Messiah. And you look around the table, LA born and bred, and all around, we have Denver, and we have Detroit, and we have also the old country, and v'chule, even a little Canada thrown in, and Boston, and all around the world here, Philly, Baltimore, yourself? Philadelphia, there we go. So the city of brotherly love, supposedly, and except for Jews. Lamaisa, what does that mean? It doesn't make a difference to us around the table. Anybody, we can have a Yidder from China, we can have a Yidder from the Philippines, we can have a Yidder from Madagascar. They're all Yidden, that's what counts, it's all one. Adam, when you take a piece of clod of earth, does it make a difference where it comes from? It's all a clod of earth. Samla da'ara, the Gemara says, Chadu, it's all one. You take a goy, a Chinaman sitting next to a Filipino, sitting next to an American, to an Indonesian, what do they have in common? Very little. Very little. Very little do they have in common. There's no plural Adam. Atam Kriyim Adam. Only you could be an Adam. A Yid could be an Adam. Hey, they're not an Adam. We Yid in our family. We Yid in our family, and certainly those who come together for Simchas, the Eibishter mentioned, with Teredik and Brachas, we should be together as a family. Teredik, Be'ez Hashem, should have Allah Brachas, a Birkas HaTorah, we should be Zeich the Gul Shleim, Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Michael, a nigga, even Sahanas.
Hayom Oso Hashem Gila V'Nismechavo 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 Where did you learn that?
When? At what portion of my life?
Where?
Meaning the yeshiva that I went to? Like when I went to Israel?
You don't want to know where you learned that nigga. Where you learned that nigga.
I didn't learn that, Megan. I didn't follow.
We learned it here. We learned it here.
Okay. See, you know what? See the crook of everything.
That's not pumpkin, it's butternut squash. Butternut squash with a little bit of pumpkin. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Nice introduction, a long introduction.
My
Rabbi,
my
Rabbi, you're
parents
talking
still
about
live
that?
there.
You're talking about the
parents
two
live in
aspects
Philadelphia.
of a
My
woman.
parents still live there.
And that's why
You know,
in
Rabbi,
the Torah it says Ezer Kenegdo, and the rabbis say, why Kenegdo? Kenegdo is
Both ways.
it can be for him,
It's very
Zachar,
sweet
lo
also,
Zachar,
very sweet
Zachar, he
person.
does the right thing with the Torah line. But actually, when we look at the
Here's
word
Hashem,
Kala,
yes.
I ask people, what does Kala mean? And I never thought about it much. Then I started looking at the roots
I
of
like
the
him a
word.
lot. He was a
Kala is could be two things. One root is Vayechulu Shamayim. One root of Vayechulu means now complete or whole. So Kala could be somebody who's whole or complete. But Kala could be another Hebrew word or root. Like when Hashem gets very
Finish
upset
off.
at the Jewish people, and then it tells Moshe, stand aside the Achalem, and I will finish him off. So she could be somebody that makes the person of the home a whole or complete, or also could be somebody to be
Very good.
So that's why Ezra connect them.
Very good. Very good. And you left your wife home.
That's one.
Okay, next time. But very good. That was a shot. Also, kala can mean, when you take kala in Lashon Kodesh, really means a daughter. A chassan means a son. So kala, when you choose a kala, you tell, everybody chooses a kala, she has everything. She has everything going for her. She has all the milas. From Lashon kulaba. Everything's within her. You choose her. It's from Lashon Kol. Everything's within her. She has all milas. That's the pshat. She's a kala. She's full of the all milas, because that's what you're supposed to say. Kala nova chasuda. Yeah, she has all milas.
except for Bet Shabbat.
Kamashhi. But the Kamashhi is also good for that. If that's what he picked. That was the right one for him.
Right.
That's how it worked. Yeah, try it, Michael. After all, Shemayim, you ended up all those miles away just for this, so.
Why did the school set up the why the manuscript?
Shmuel?
Yeah, thank you.
Right behind you.
Yes, I don't want to move. Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes just tell people don't move, people, why not? Move.
Yeah.
Rabbi, excuse me, I don't know if I'm out of order.
No.
But you wrote something very interesting just a couple of minutes ago about Haisha Niknet. And you said that it's in correction to the previous part.
Correct.
Anytime when we have the hay, this is hay hasmucha. It's always when it's connected to something else. So this
Very
is
good, very good, very good, thank you. Rabbi Gura didn't sell you short, he said that you, right? Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you have one for South
And he gave his wife the highest compliment. He actually said she was right.
Mikolu, Amado.
Hagoyai nois Mikado Ay 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 Malach Hagoyai nois Hagoyai